Usually when we talk about breaking into a highly secure system, there is this, persistent expectation of a Hollywood-style action sequence.
Totally, like a digital bank heist.
Exactly. We picture the thieves just, drilling straight through the physical lock, blowing the heavy safe door off its hinges, and then just walking away with the gold in a duffel bag.
Right. It's aggressive, it's incredibly fast, and, well, it is highly visible. Which makes for a compelling movie scene, but, it has almost zero bearing on modern reality.
Because when you step into the world of contemporary digital security, you quickly realize that the bank vault isn't just invisible, it's actively hostile.
Yeah, it's constantly shifting its internal layout.
Right, it's updating its own blueprints on the fly and monitoring literally every single footstep you take inside the building.
Yeah.
We are looking at a technological landscape that is a microscopic, highly asymmetric cat and mouse game.
It is the absolute definition of an intellectual arms race, The defenders have virtually unlimited resources. Meanwhile, the attackers, they rely entirely on finding these tiny, invisible fractions of a millimeter where the system's logic sort of contradicts itself.
It's wild. And if you've ever wondered what it actually takes to break into a system that is locked down to that absurd degree, today's deep dive into the homebrew scene is going to absolutely blow your mind.
It really is a fascinating world.
It is. Our mission today is demystifying the highly technical, incredibly patient world of PlayStation 5 jailbreaking. And to make sense of this for you, we have pulled together a massive stack of sources.
Yeah, a lot of dense material.
Oh, tons of it. We're pulling from highly active Reddit homebrew communities. We are reading through the really dense GitHub repository readmes from the exploit developers themselves. And, we're breaking down technical video tutorials from the scene's top creators.
It is.
Yeah, because hacking a modern console isn't just about, plugging in a magical USB drive anymore and just watching a progress bar fill up.
You're not even close.
Right. As the sources outlined, it involves tricking Blu-ray players, waiting nearly an hour for a system counter to literally overflow, and meticulously blocking Sony's watchful eye. Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we even begin with breaking into a system that is designed from the ground up to keep us out?
Well, to understand a modern jailbreak, you first have to understand the operating system's architecture. It requires two distinct halves.
Okay.
Think of the console as an ultra-secure corporate headquarters, right? The first half is just getting through the front doors and into the lobby.
Right, just getting in the building.
Exactly. In software terms, this is what they call a user land exploit. It gets you into the system's basic, highly restricted user environment. It operates at what we call Ring 3 privileges.
So you're in the building, but you're basically wearing a generic visitor badge. You can sit on the lobby couch, but you definitely aren't getting past the security desk.
You certainly can't change the thermostat, and you cannot access the basement filing cabinets.
Yeah, right.
To actually run custom software or homebrew, you need the keys to the vault. That is the second half, the kernel exploit.
Okay, the kernel exploit.
Yeah, that gives you Ring 0 access, the ultimate administrative root power over the hardware itself. You fundamentally need both a user LAN entry and a kernel takeover to have a true working jailbreak.
But before you can even attempt to pick the locks on the front door or the vault, you have to make sure the manufacturer doesn't just, change the locks while you're standing there working on them.
Which they will absolutely do.
Right. According to the Reddit threads, the absolute golden rule, like the moat around the castle, is stopping the console from updating its firmware.
That is step zero. The modern console is inherently designed to phone home.
Yeah.
The moment it connects to the internet and sees a newer firmware version, it will aggressively try to download and install it. And that permanently patches the very vulnerabilities these developers have spent months or sometimes even years discovering.
And the community has come up with some pretty clever ways to build this defensive moat. The basic stuff is pretty obvious. You go into the settings, turn off auto downloads, turn off auto installs, and literally just unplug the console from the wall when you aren't using it.
Just keep it completely in the dark.
Exactly. But the network defenses are where the ingenuity really shines, I think. Users are going into their network settings and setting their primary DNS to 127.0.0.0 0.0.0.2.
Right, that's a standard loopback address. It is a foundational networking concept, but here it's repurposed as a shield.
Yeah, it's essentially putting up a fake detour sign or like a hall of mirrors. The PS5 reaches out to the internet, asks the DNS phone book, hey, where's Sony's update servers? And the 127.0.1 trick essentially tells the PS5, Sony's servers are actually located inside your cell.
Exactly. So the console just calls its own internal IP address, gets a busy signal, and the update check safely fails.
So smart.
It forces the connection to resolve to a dead end. And for users who want to be even more secure, they use tools like NanoDNS once they are actually jailbroken.
Okay.
Others configure firewalls at the router level. The sources mention using a Flint2 router paired with AdGuard to specifically isolate the console's IP address from the wide area network entirely.
Wow, so they are severing the cord to the outside world at a very granular hardware level.
Pretty much, yeah.
Now, looking at these router level firewalls, I realized a massive contradiction. If you completely kill the internet connection to keep Sony out, how do you download the hack itself? Like, how do you get it on there?
Right, it seems impossible.
Yeah. But diving into the GitHub documentation, I saw they bypass this entirely by exploiting the local area network.
What's fascinating here is, well, the rigid distinction between the wide area network, which is the global internet, and your local area network, which is just the Wi-Fi inside your house. By manipulating the DNS or locking down the router firewall, you are only blocking traffic bound for the outside world. The console is blind to Sony, but it is still fully capable of communicating with other devices sitting right on your desk.
Oh, so your PC or your Android phone just acts as a localized makeshift web server to beam the exploit payloads over the air.
Exactly. Or, in many cases, they rely on physical media to sneak the code in. Which brings us right to the front door, getting into user land.
The lobby of the building.
Right, the lobby. We need a vulnerability in an application that is already permitted to run on the system.
And looking at the sources, there are two main ways people are sneaking into the lobby right now. The older, but incredibly reliable method is called BDJB, which stands for Blu-ray Disc Java.
Yeah, that's a classic.
Hackers basically burn a custom ISO file, I think the widely used one is the VictoriaStax all-in-one disc, onto a physical recordable Blu-ray. And when the PS5 plays the disc, it exploits the Java environment that was originally designed, over a decade ago, just to run those clunky, interactive Blu-ray movie menus.
Yeah, it is a brilliant misuse of legacy technology. Blu-ray menus require a Java virtual machine to render animations and handle remote control inputs.
Right.
By finding a sandbox escape within that outdated Java environment, they force the console's Blu-ray player to execute custom payloads instead of a movie menu.
It's so clever.
It is. And that specific BDJB method has been an absolute workhorse for firmwares up to version 13.42. But it carries a rather massive hardware limitation.
Right, because it requires a physical disk drive. And millions of people bought the digital edition of the PS5, which has no disk drive at all. So for that entire segment of the user base, the BDJB sandbox escape was completely useless.
Which is exactly why the scene has been desperately searching for a software-only entry point.
And that brings us to the recent news from the forums, which is honestly massive. There is a brand new userland exploit called the WebKit exploit.
Yes, this was a huge breakthrough.
It uses a CSS font face bug in the console's hidden web browser. Because every single PS5 has this web browser engine built in to handle things like user manuals and Twitter logins, this new exploit works on all consoles, the Fat, Slim, Pro, and crucially, those digital editions.
Yep, all of them.
And it works all the way up to Firmware 13.60.
WebKit vulnerabilities have historically been the holy grail for initial console access because they lower the barrier to entry entirely.
Right, you don't need a Blu-ray burner.
Exactly. You just need the console to load a specific, maliciously crafted web page.
But I want to dig into how this actually works, because just saying CSS font face bug, that sounds like a web design error, not a critical security flaw.
It does sound mild, yeah.
But from what I read in the exploit breakdowns, when the browser engine renders a custom font on a web page, it allocates a specific chunk of memory based on the font's mathematical metadata.
That is the core of the issue right there. The developers feed the browser a custom font file with mathematically impossible dimensions. The browser's memory allocator gets confused by the malicious parameters and ends up writing the font data way beyond the assigned boundaries. It bleeds over into adjacent system memory.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that is a classic buffer overflow triggered simply by trying to display text on a screen.
That is wild.
Yeah.
And the sources note that this specific WebKit overflow gives hackers access to something called the dupe system call, which they use to trigger older kernel exploits, like one affectionately named Poopsploit.
A very mature name, yes.
Right, they trigger it without ever needing a Blu-ray disc. The dupe call duplicates file descriptors, allowing the hackers to manipulate how the system tracks open files and slowly take control of memory pointers.
So, I mean, what does this all mean for you listening? If you have a PS5 sitting on firmware 13.60, are you fully jailbroken right now? Can you just go to a website and start running Homebrew?
Well, the hard truth is no, not yet.
Really?
Yeah, we have to revisit the architecture. The WebKit CSS bug gets you into the lobby on 13.60, gets you Ring 3 access.
But getting into the lobby doesn't mean the vault is open. Exactly. To actually run custom software, to mount game backups, or to manipulate the system files, you absolutely need that Ring 0 kernel access.
Okay.
Firmware 13.60 currently has a functional userland exploit, but the community is still hunting desperately for a kernel exploit for that specific firmware version.
So if I'm on 13.60, I'm basically stuck in the lobby staring at an impenetrable vault door.
Pretty much.
That means if you actually want to run custom software today, you are forced to look backward to older hardware. How far back do we have to go to see a full, working end-to-end jailbreak?
For a complete chain, we have to look at firmwares up to 12.70. Here, they use a completely different methodology involving the system's backup and restore feature.
I was reading about this. It sounds intense.
It is. Users literally factory reset their consoles, wiping them clean, and then restore a highly modified system backup file via a standard USB drive. This backup contains a hijacked, pre-installed version of the YouTube app.
Okay, yeah, I watched a technical breakdown video on this. They navigate to this modified YouTube app, open it, and it triggers a kernel exploit known as Y2JB and P2JB.
What's the one?
But this is where my jaw genuinely dropped.
Yeah.
On firmwares from 10.01 up to 12.70, opening that YouTube app doesn't just instantly hack the console.
No, it does not.
It takes 50 minutes, 50, almost an hour of just leaving the console completely alone to think.
Yeah, it demands an immense amount of patience. But the mechanism behind why it takes 50 minutes is just a masterclass in exploiting digital architecture through sheer persistence.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because they aren't waiting for a download, they're waiting for an integer overflow.
Exactly.
They're spamming the PS5's processor with a specific system call, the QX call, roughly 4 billion times. I was trying to picture this, and it's like trying to break a heavy steel padlock by dropping a single microscopic bead of water on it 4 billion times until the internal mechanism finally snaps under the cumulative pressure.
That is an excellent visualization. To get technical, QA is a kernel event notification mechanism. The PS5 uses it constantly to manage background system events.
Okay.
And every time you trigger it, a 32-bit reference counter, called CREF, ticks upward by 1 to keep track of the memory being used.
And 32-bit integers have a hard mathematical limit.
Right. The absolute maximum value a 32-bit integer can hold in binary is roughly 4.29 billion. When they hit 4,294,967,295, the next drop of water forces the counter to wrap back around to absolute zero.
And when it hits 0, the system's logic fundamentally breaks.
It completely shatters.
The system suddenly thinks, oh, the reference counter is 0. Nobody is using this chunk of memory anymore. I'll free it up and make it available for other tasks. But the hackers are still using it. They still hold a pointer to that exact location.
Which creates a highly coveted, highly dangerous vulnerability called a use after free. The system marks the memory as empty, but the attacker is still watching it. When the system inevitably places something highly sensitive into that empty space, like system security credentials, the hacker instantly overwrites it.
Wow.
They now have read and write access to the kernel. They finally have the keys to the vault.
But the time frame is what gets me. 50 minutes. The PS5 is a supercomputer capable of rendering ray-traced 4K graphics at 60 frames per second. Why can't they just make it count to 4 billion faster? Can't they just blast the processor at full speed?
It is entirely a trade-off between speed and stability. The PS5 processor has multiple CPU cores.
Right.
If the exploit developers use all the cores to aggressively spam the QX counter simultaneously, the system gets completely overwhelmed. The kernel detects the memory instability and panics to protect itself.
A kernel panic.
Exactly. A kernel panic instantly shuts down and reboots the console, meaning you lose all your progress and have to start the 50-minute counter all over again.
Oh, that's brutal. So they are forced to throttle it artificially.
They have to carefully tune the exploit payload to run exclusively on specific cores, usually isolating it to cores 0 through 3. They intentionally leave Core 4 completely free to act as the orchestrator for the rest of the console's background tasks, just to keep the machine alive and stable during this 50-minute assault.
Wow.
It's a really delicate balancing act. Push too hard, the system crashes. Push too slow, overflow takes hours. 50 minutes is just the absolute mathematical sweet spot they found for firmwares up to 12.7.
which perfectly explains why all the tutorials aggressively warn you to put the console in rest mode instead of turning it off when you're done playing.
Yes, never turn it off.
Because if you power it down completely, the memory wipes, you lose the kernel access, and you have to sit there for another 50 minutes the next time you want to play a game.
Exactly. Rest mode keeps the volatile memory state alive, ensuring the vault stays unlocked. Although, if you read the deeper forum threads, there are rumblings about an unreleased exploit codenamed Celsius that attempts to bypass this wait.
Yeah, I saw the video breakdown on Celsius. It sounds like an absolute myth at this point. The rumors suggest it might work up to firmware 12.70, but it doesn't take 50 minutes. Instead, it relies on plugging in a 250 gigabyte USD 3.0 external drive at an unbelievably precise millisecond timing window during the system's boot process.
Yep.
But why specifically a 250 gigabyte drive?
It comes down to hardware initialization times. The storage controller on drives of that exact density takes a highly specific number of milliseconds to power up and handshake with the console during a cold boot sequence.
Okay, so it's a timing trick.
Exactly. That exact hardware-level delay forces a race condition in the PS5's USB mounting daemon, potentially allowing malicious code to slip into the system before the security checks fully load.
Trying to physically plug in a USB at the exact right millisecond based on how fast the magnetic platters spin up, that sounds completely maddening.
It highlights how creative and desperate the methods have to be as the security tightens. But, as the sources strictly warn, Celsius is not a public jailbreak yet. It remains a theoretical proof of concept being passed around in Discord screenshots.
Okay, so let's say you do it the traditional way. You build the DNS moat, you sneak through the Blu-ray or WebKit front door, you wait the 50 minutes, the integer counter overflows, and you finally have root access. You're in the vault.
You made it.
What is the actual reward for you, the listener, if you pull this off? Like, what does this underground playground actually look like?
The primary reward is the ability to run what the community calls payloads.
Payloads?
Yeah, these are custom pieces of code injected directly into the console's memory to alter its behavior. And the tools to deliver these payloads have become incredibly sophisticated.
Because gone are the days of juggling a dozen different USB thumb drives formatted in FAT32, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, users are utilizing apps like Nexus Payload Center. You literally just open an app on your Android phone, type in your PS5's local IP address, and just beam the payload over your home Wi-Fi network.
Or they rely on comprehensive software suites like ELF Arsenal. This specific payload is fascinating because it actually sets up a local web management panel on your PC.
Oh, wow.
You navigate to your PS5 IP address on port 6969 in your desktop web browser, and suddenly you have a full graphical dashboard to manage system files, install packages, and monitor the console's temperatures and memory usage remotely.
That's super clean.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, the main reason most people do this is to mount and play game backups. And this seems to be where things get incredibly messy and complicated.
It does get messy, yes.
The guides emphasize using a payload tool called Shadow Mount Plus for mounting games to the home screen. But they put a massive, bold warning label on it, saying the PS5 can only handle one mounting system at a time. So if you run Shadow Mount Plus at the same time as an older, popular tool like Ederen, they actively fight each other.
Yeah, they conflict over how game licenses are registered in the system's internal database.
Ah, okay.
When two payloads try to write to the same database sector simultaneously, it leads to missing icons, frozen loading screens, or complete system crashes. You have to meticulously manage your payloads to ensure only one master tool is handling the game mounting at any given time.
And the storage management is a whole other beast to tackle. I mean, PS5 games are massive, easily hitting 100 gigabytes each. The sources detail how hackers use a PS5 game compressor tool on their PC to take raw, decrypted game folders and turn them into highly compressed XFE images.
Using a specific extension called .ffpfsc.
Right.
It is an absolute necessity for managing space, especially since the internal NVMe SSD is so limited and expensive to upgrade. But playing those ripped compressed games introduces its own set of hurdles, specifically regarding the APR emulator.
Yes, the APR emulator. I was reading the workflow for this, and it just sounds agonizing. If you want to run a dumped game from an external USB drive, you can't just copy the files over and hit play. The game will instantly crash to the dashboard on startup.
Immediately.
You have to go onto your PC, manually create a folder named fake lib inside the game's directory, and then insert specific APR emulator library files into it. Things like libscripts and playgo. Why are these necessary?
Well, those are fundamental decryption libraries. When you legally own a game on a disk or from the store and run it on a normal PS5, the operating system handles all the decryption on the fly using its own secure proprietary libraries.
Right, seamless.
But a dumped jailbroken game has had that official Sony security stripped away. So without the official libraries present, the game engine panics, assumes it's corrupted, and crashes.
So you have to spoof the entire decryption process.
Exactly. The APR emulator provides these fake libraries, effectively tricking the game engine into thinking it is still running in the official secure environment. It intercepts the game's decryption requests on the fly and bypasses them, allowing the raw code to run.
Okay, I have to push back here for a second.
Sure.
Listen to all of this. Setting up manual DNS servers to block updates, factory resetting your console, waiting 50 minutes every single time it reboots, risking kernel panics, compressing files into weird FFPSA formats, and manually dragging and dropping fake library files just to make a single game run without crashing.
It's a lot.
Is the juice really worth the squeeze for the average gamer? Why go through this agonizingly tedious process just to play a video game?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, for the vast majority of people, no, it's absolutely not worth it for the sake of mere convenience.
Yeah.
If you just want to sit on your couch after work and play the latest release, you buy it, you let the console update, and you accept the terms of service. But for this community, the motivation is rarely about convenience.
It's about the principle of the thing.
It's fundamentally about preservation. It's about true ownership of the hardware you purchased with your own money. When Sony decides to take a game offline permanently, or a mandatory patch breaks a gameplay mechanic you loved, the official closed ecosystem dictates what you can and cannot do with your machine.
Which is frustrating.
Very. A jailbroken console returns that control entirely to the user. And beyond that philosophical point, it is the sheer, unadulterated intellectual thrill of reverse engineering a multi-billion-dollar closed ecosystem. It is the ultimate puzzle of the invisible bank vault.
It really is a journey. To recap the sheer scale of what we've unpacked today, you start by building a localized DNS wall to keep Sony's servers out. Then you find a cracked window sneaking in through a malicious WebKit font bug or an outdated Blu-ray Java environment. Once you are inside the lobby, you essentially drip water on the padlock, spamming the processor for 50 minutes, waiting for the kernel's memory counter to overflow and break. And finally, you're in the playground, beaming custom Android payloads over Wi-Fi, monitoring temperatures on port 6969, and spoofing decryption libraries just to make the system bend to your will.
It is a phenomenal display of human persistence. But as we look toward the future of this scene, this raises an important question, especially based on something buried deep in the source material.
Oh, yeah.
We talked earlier about the new WebKit vulnerability for Firmware 14.10. Getting that to work wasn't just finding one simple CSS bug. According to the developers in the forums, it required an incredibly complex chain of 4 different separate memory exploits working in perfect synchronized harmony.
And buried in those forum comments was a mind-bending detail that completely changes the context of this entire space. A user asked how the developer, Jordy, managed to achieve such a complex chain of vulnerabilities given how hard Sony has locked down the newer firmwares.
Right.
And the developer replied, flat out, it is AI. What made this WebKit exploit a reality is AI.
They're using large language models and artificial intelligence to assist in the heavy lifting. The AI isn't just writing boilerplate scripts, it is actively analyzing the massive open source code base of the WebKit engine.
It's crazy.
It is finding the spatial relationship between distinct, seemingly harmless memory quirks and chaining them together to create buffer overflows faster and more efficiently than a human mind could map out alone. The AI visualizes the memory space in a way that allows it to find race conditions humans simply miss.
Which leaves you with something to really think about as you look at your own devices. As these digital bank vaults get smarter, constantly shifting their layouts and hiding their locks behind layers of encryption, the people trying to break in are evolving too. What happens to digital security, to console gaming, and to our devices in general when the hackers are no longer just patient humans waiting 50 minutes for a counter to overflow, but humans wielding artificial intelligence to instantly find the invisible cracks in our technology? The cat and mouse game just got a whole lot more complicated. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.